Alright, welcome everyone to this wonderful section once again, and I hope everyone has been doing really great over time. Today we'll be talking about texting. In today's episode, you will learn how to create basic text in Moho Studio and also basic animation with text in Moho Studio and complex animation with text in Moho Studio. So stick around. If this is your first time on this channel, make sure you subscribe and go and check my other videos and see what is helpful to you. And also I have something special for you at the end, so make sure you watch through the video to really get what you need so that you can start creating better text in Moho Studio. Alright, let's get started. Welcome to the Animate Me channel. Texting in Moho Studio. Using text in Moho Studio has been something that I see a lot of people not really doing, but very few animators have created videos or explained, or even if they use it, they don't actually show it. So in this tutorial, I really want to show you how to do texting in Moho Studio. It's really very simple, more than other softwares, and you really have the ability to create whatever thing you want. Take for example, to add a text to Moho Studio, the first thing you need to do is either you go to this tool here and click on text, or you hit Ctrl T on your keyboard to pop up the text channel where you type in your text. So I'll just go ahead and write whatever text I want. And if this is our text, you can see how easy it is. On this text channel, you can go ahead and select whatever font you want if you have it installed, but your default font will be what you would see here on this channel. I'll be using the default font I have here, which is Arial Bold Italics. You can change it to whatever font you choose to use depending on what you are going for. All right, so let me just leave it with the bold italics. It kind of gives it some, a beautiful look. Then the next thing for you to do here is you can change the fill color to red or whatever you want. So you could see it has changed already. And if you want to add strokes to your text, this is where you just click this checkbox right here, and you can change the color of the strokes to be whatever you want, green, blue, white, whatever. So you could see the strokes here, and you can increase the size, the width rather, of the stroke. You could see it right here. I'm using my mouse button to scroll through, or you could just highlight and put whatever number you want in there, so on and so forth. Sorry, I hit OK. So I'll double click on that and I'll uncheck this box because I don't want to use strokes. And also for the text layer, you can scale it using this scale here. You can put your kerning, so whichever one you want, you can just go ahead and do the same. And down here you can see where it says select word balloon type. So but you can go ahead and select whatever balloon you want to put behind the text. It depends on whatever you are creating. This is what it looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and you can just go ahead and select whichever one depending on what you are creating at that time. But we'll be using none of this because I just want to show you how to animate your text in Moho Studio. And you can play around with these other settings here, like the fill and stroke fill for the balloon that you have put on your for your creation. So if we have our text written, you can go ahead and hit apply and hit OK. Alright, so now this is what we have. If you've written your text, now you can go ahead and animate it whichever way you want. And to animate it real quickly, it's as simple as coming to frame 1 here and you add a keyframe. I always like to add keyframes initially. Some people don't, but anyway, this is my method. So you add a keyframe, and depending on what you want the text to do, you can probably drag it out. Maybe you want it to slide in whichever way. You can move to frame 6 or frame 12, whichever. Then you bring in your text. So when you play this, all right, and if this is the way you want your animation to look like, you can go ahead and still highlight both keyframes here and come to your keyframe interpolation. just so you take note, your keyframe interpolation will not be here. What you will see for your own program will probably be the layers. If you want to bring in the keyframe interpolation, all you have to do is go to Windows, and you see the keyframe here. You make sure it is ticked, or you hit Ctrl Alt F and it will come up and you will see it there. All right, so the next thing for you to do is you could change the interpolation, so it could be linear, and it could be whatever you want. It could be bouncy. All right, and you can also go ahead and extend the speed so that when it comes in, it takes a whole lot of time to create the animation. So you just go ahead and play with the interpolation to create whatever animation you want. Now the next thing for you to do is you can go ahead and manipulate. Let me remove all the animation here. So I'll come to animation, clear animation from current frame. So you can see we have no more animation in here. So what about if you want to create simple animation whereby the text come in one by one in different forms as you want? So what you have to do is just probably duplicate. I'm trying to make this as quick as possible. We have how many text here? 1 2 3 4. So we have 1 2 3 4. So what we'll do is that for the first one, we'll go to double click on it, delete, yes. And you can also do this, you can also write in the text one by one, depends on how you want it, but for this tutorial, this is the quickest way I can actually do this. All right, so since we have this, all we have to do is come to subscribe and bring it to the side, to this side, then we'll bring in the channel to this point. So all you have to do is now arrange all this the way it is supposed to be. So we still have subscribe to my channel, and you can do one more thing to make things easier for you. You can put all these layers in one folder so that you can make it disappear and appear and make more better animation, or you could just leave them the way they are if you like to work scattered. But what we'll do here is I'll put them in one folder because it's still the same thing, and I'll come here and I'll group with selection. So after we've grouped it to selection, make sure you give it a good name, maybe text 1, because you may have a lot of text that you are animating on your scene depending on what you are doing. So I'll bring this in here. So there are different ways you can actually, create the animation. So I'll just show you a couple that will give you an idea on how to make your animation so that you can make different textual type of animation, since you are customizing it yourself, not just applying a preset from Premiere Pro or other programs. So what you will do here is you can just turn off, well, let's do the first one. You can turn off the text from the whole group like this, and you move to probably frame 6 and you make it visible. Then you go to frame 12, or let's say frame 18, you make it invisible. Then you can just pick the first frame here, or the last frame rather. You go to circle, and when you play this, a very simple animation, you must have seen this, and you can turn this to GIF or whatever you want. When you hit export, that's Ctrl E on your keyboard. All right, so you hit Ctrl E on your keyboard, and you export in whichever animated GIF and whichever form you want. I'm sure most of you know how to do this already. So let's say this is your first type of animation. So do subscribe to the channel and let's erase this animation. Clear. All right, so we'll make it visible. All right, and then the next animation could be you want the text to appear one by one. So you can go in and make all of them invisible like this by clicking on this arrow here. Make it invisible like this. This is really some basic stuff, but I know that some people don't know this, so I'm taking my time to show you how it's done. All right, so this at frame, we can come to the main text here. We'll go to animation. We can add our keyframe if you want or not. then you can go to frame 12 and you hit subscribe to my channel. The reason you are giving space here is so that it will play before the text starts to appear. Then you may jump to frame 24 and hit visible, then 36, I guess. Then 24 was supposed to be 2, not my. Let's delete this one here. All right, so 36 will be my, like this. You turn it on. Then at 48 we have channel. You make that visible. So when you play this, you have a very simple animation. All right, and you can just make this in repeat if you want, and you export and do whatever you want to do. The next type of animation rather you can create, it will get complex as we go forward. All right, so the next one we can create is, I will just come to this first layer and I'll delete all keyframes within the folder. So this is what we have, and I will make each of them visible. All right, so now what I'm trying to do here is to open your mind to the concept of texting, so that you can do whatever you want to do. The next thing we could do is imagine the text laying down and standing up. How would you want to do that? This is the way you would create such type of animation using your X, Y, and Z rotate layer tool. All right, so at excuse me, at frame 1 we can do this. So now if you see, I'm dragging up, I'm clicking and dragging up. I had clicked on the tool here, so I'm clicking and dragging up. If you see, it is rotating from the middle. If I go to 2, the same thing from the middle. So whichever part you want it to rotate from, that is the part you will put your origin. And what is your origin? Your origin is this arrow you could see here, like this. So if you want it to rotate from the bottom itself, you have to bring your origin down to the bottom. All right, so we'll quickly create this and you will see the difference as it is. So let me erase the animation here. So let's take it from beginning. So let me erase this. At frame 12, all the animation will start at frame 12. So let's say at frame 1 I will turn this off, the main folder, I'll turn it off. Then at frame 12, where I'll turn on and make it visible. All right, then at that frame 12 I'll add a keyframe to all of the layers, so that to show me where everything starts from. All right, so the next thing I'll do is, since I want subscribe to wake up first before any other one, I will turn off my 2. All right, then my, then channel. All right, then at this point, at this first point here, I will just make this, click that tool and drag it up like this. All right, so when it appears like this at frame 24, I'll hold shift down and make sure the subscribe turns back to its original position. All right, if you're having problem also maybe bringing back the subscribe to its original position, and your hands are still shaky, and to make it at 90 degrees, what you have to do is, before you start dragging this, make sure you hold shift and add an initial keyframe, so that is that keyframe you would copy. Let me explain what I mean by that. So I'll delete this and I'll delete this also. At frame 6 or at frame 9 rather, I will just click on this tool here and click and drag just a little bit to add a keyframe here. So if the whole file was visible, you would see we had not tampered with the subscribe tool initially. All right, so what we just did is add a keyframe, because when we add keyframes, all these tools here, they don't add keyframes except you add the keyframe yourself. I hope that is understandable. All right, so we click on the tool, we add a keyframe, All right, then we can go back and turn off the folder if we want. Let me leave it on so that I don't get to confuse you. All right, so at this point we have an original keyframe. All right, so I'll just add that keyframe there just by clicking on it and just dragging a little bit. You could see here the keyframe has appeared. All right, these two keyframe, this is what we are working with, the X and Y axis rotate tool. All right, so at this point I will just shift this. You can do this at frame 1 or whichever frame behind, since it's not going to appear, and this is the way you would do it for other layers that you have here. So at frame 12 it is where I will now, oh sorry, I'm working on the layer here. I'm supposed to be working on subscribe itself. All right, so at frame 12 it is where I have this. Okay, then at frame 24 I want the text to come back to its original place, so I'll copy the original frame keyframe from here, just copy and paste it. So when it plays from this point, this is what we'll have. So we'll do the same thing for to, my, and channel. All right, so let's quickly do that. So we have this. When subscribe has come up at frame 24, we want to also do the same. So at this point we'll do the same for to. Okay, so I'll add my keyframe at some place before the to appears, then I'll make it visible. Holding shift down will rotate our to this point because that's when it appears, and 36 we'll have it holding shift down. You either drag it or you copy the original frame, Ctrl C Ctrl V, so that you have everything properly. Then at frame 48 where my appears, make it visible, you hold shift, you repeat the same process. All right, so if we should play this real quickly, this is what we'll have. From the beginning we can go ahead now and turn off the whole layer like this. So we'll make everything invisible, then everything from frame 1 rather will make everything invisible. Then everything starts from frame 12, isn't it? So we'll make it visible at frame 12. So this is what we'll have when we play it from the beginning. All right, so you can see this is a very basic animation, and this is how you can create it yourself whichever way you want. And you can go ahead and use this tool to create all types of concept of animation that you want. So another thing I would like to show you also while creating your animation is you can do you can manipulate your text to look differently from its original text. All right, so let's do something different. So I'll go ahead and clear up my animation from all the folders like this, and I'll make sure I make it visible back, so we have everything in our layer, everything. There is no animation in any other layer rather. All right, you could also go ahead and use this tool to create more animation. This both these tools, this the rotate X and YZ and the share layer tool. The share layer tool, let's say on my channel, you can actually do something like this, you know, rotate the text and, you know, create whatever animation you want with it. All right, you could see it has added a keyframe, and at frame 18 you can, you know, rotate it in whichever axis you want, so when it plays you get something like this, you know. And this is really good if you know, I don't know what you want to create with it. You can just go ahead and, you know, play around with this in whatever way. You mix them up. You know, I'm using the other tool now, the X and Y rotate tool, to mix up the animation so you can see what is happening, which feels as if it's rotating in a 3D sphere. And also, like I said initially, you can go ahead and use your origin tool, because you can see the origin at the center here. You can change the path of the origin so it rotates along that axis as you want. All right, so if I change the origin axis also to this point, you could see everything rotates along that axis. All right, so keep that in mind. So I'll go ahead and clear up the animation from this point. So we have everything back, and let's try something different. So you can also go ahead and convert your layer to a switch layer, where you can make it easy for yourself to create, your animation to appear one by one, instead of turning them off and on with the visible checkbox here. You can just go ahead and convert your layer to a switch layer, as you saw I did. And how to do that is you right click and convert to switch layer, because they are all in a folder, and you can just go ahead and add your animations whichever way you want. So at frame 1, you go to your switch layer, you click on it, you hit subscribe. At frame 6 rather, then at frame 12, you go to your layer, you hit 2. At frame 18, you go to my. At frame 24, you hit channel. So okay, if you are watching this from the beginning now, it says subscribe to my channel, and you can go ahead and repeat this process by just highlighting the last keyframe you see here, and you go to circle, and this is what you have. It keeps repeating itself in a loop, and you can export it as a loop like this, and you have it to whichever length you want. Let me show you another way to animate your text. Now it's getting complicated. I hope you guys are ready. Make sure you stick with me to the end, because I have something special to show you. All right, so I've cleared the animation right there, and since I can return the folder back to a normal folder, what I will do is I will highlight all the text in the folder and remove them, and delete the folder itself and put them back in a new folder by holding shift and highlighting all of them and group with selection again. All right, I hope that's understandable. I'll drag this up and I'll call this text again, T-E-X-T. All right, so we have our text back and everything is working perfectly well. Ctrl Z to undo that. I'll pick my transform tool here, and we have this. Now what I want to show you here is something very simple, and I hope this will be helpful to all of you. If you come to your text tool, it's your text layer itself rather, if you right click, and what you will see here is you will see convert to vector. This is a very important tool that Moho has given us to use. So when you convert to vector, that means you can manipulate your text whichever way you want. So I'm going to convert all of them to vector, so you could see what is happening as I'm converting them to vector layers. So with shift, I'll hold shift to drag it out. Okay, so just make sure you fix the spacing properly. Okay, so subscribe to my channel. We will go ahead and manipulate this text as we want. So we can say from here, if we zoom in a little bit, you could see we now have points all over the text. All right, and with these points we can animate the text whichever way we want. All right, so we'll now go ahead and turn off all these layers, because we are going to be using what we did initially to make our animation as beautiful as we want. So let's say we want the S to enlarge and the U to drag a bit and do whatever it wants. I'll just get creative with it so that you understand what I mean. So from frame 1, I will turn it off. I'll add a keyframe, and at frame 6 where it appears, or let's go to frame 12 where it appears, I'll turn it on. So I'll add a keyframe at that point, and at 18 I will highlight just the S. So let's zoom in to make sure we are picking everything. You can just click the S alone, and we have something like this. Now I'm clicking and I'm scaling at the same time, so when it appears you have something like this. So you want to emphasize on the description of the text itself. So we now have sub, at this point, this is the original keyframes. So when it pops up at frame 24, it comes back to normal. So I'll just copy that frame 12 which I have added, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, so it goes back to normal. All right, so I'll do the same thing for you. At that point, at frame 24, I will add another keyframe because that is where it's going to start from, isn't it? Then at frame 30, we'll enlarge the U also. So we'll click on U, then we'll enlarge it a bit like this, then maybe shift it a bit, okay? And at frame 36, we'll copy frame 24, Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So if we play from 12, we have this. You can see what is happening, right? Then we'll do the same thing for B. At frame 36, we'll add our keyframe, and then at frame 42 rather, we'll click on B and enlarge it a bit. All right, maybe now shift it to this point. Then at frame 48, we'll copy frame 36 and paste it there. We've dropped it. So if we should play this from beginning, this is what we'll have. So you could see initially there is nothing on screen. If I go to my text here, all right, so let's watch what we have animated. So you could see this is a very simple animation and the time it took to create this. So you could just, so when you export this, you can go ahead and make it as fast as you want. Okay, let's say you want the text to be to move with much more speed than what you have here like this. So all you have to do is click and highlight all the keyframes you have here. Hold Alt, make sure Alt is held down, then you drag. So let me highlight all the keyframe plus the transform keyframe like this, then you drag it, hold Alt and scale it backwards. So let's leave it at 66. So when we play this, we have, so you can see it's a bit much more faster. So you could also hold Alt again and scale it down to as much as whatever frame you want. So you could see it's much more faster now. So using this method, you could animate your text to do whatever thing you want it to do. So let me scale this back up a bit so that I'll have a little bit of space here, and let me show you another thing you can also do while creating such type of animation. So you hold Alt, let me leave it at 96. Then let's say we have this, isn't it? This is our text, and you can go ahead and do the same thing for all this other text, but let's focus on subscribe at this moment. Let's say while the S grows and comes back at this point here, we can do something really crazy. We can come to this point, we can grab a point on S, or 2 points or 3 points, whichever you want. You can drag it something like this. All right, so you could see that as it pops up, while the U pops up, you can go ahead and drag this point down also, you know, just making it really crazy. While the B grows bigger, you can do something like this also. Just grab a point and play around with it, and as the S does the same thing, you can do this, then it goes back to its original position. Then for the C, the same thing also. You can play around with it. I don't think that is nice, but let's see. And you can do the same thing for the R. So I'm just grabbing the points and just getting crazy with the concepts that I have here. And for the B, we can do the same thing also. And for the E, we can do the same thing also. So if we play this from the beginning, this is what we'll have, a very fun looking animation. All right, so you could see, you can go ahead and keep playing around with the whole concept. So let me reduce this and make it much more faster. So I'm going to put this at 48, so it's going to be very fast. And you can go ahead and put a music at the background, and it just makes a whole lot of sense. So you can go ahead and do that for to, my, and channel. I hope you understand and get the point. Now, to mix things up and make things very much interesting, we can go ahead, as we have animated the text like this and play around with it. You can go ahead and now add the initial animation which I showed you from the start to this animation you have already created, since this is what you want. So we can now go ahead on this layer itself and add our rotate X and Y tool to it. So let's say at this point we will add our origin. Our origin is already there, so we want it to rotate in a certain way, not from the middle, but not from the center of the text as the origin was initially placed. So we have it there like this. So let's say at probably frame 24 we will make the text bend a little bit, then come back to its original position. So what we will do there is we'll go to our X and Y tool. As I told you before, you add that keyframe by just touching it and bending it a bit like this. You could see the keyframes here. It has added. So this will be our initial X and Y rotate keyframe. So at frame 24 we will now have, holding shift, we'll now drag it on the X axis like this. All right, then at frame 36 we will now copy the initial keyframe and paste it there, or we rotate it this other way, all right, to the X axis like this. Then to make sure everything is final, we'll now at frame 48 we'll now copy our initial frame, because we want the subscribe to come back to its normal position. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So you will now have it like this. So you could see the animation. So how does that look? I hope it looks really good, right? So you could see you now have something really great while this plays on and on. Do make sure you subscribe. Yeah, and I know you must have seen some animations like this, and you can actually create them yourself. So if you have enjoyed this tutorial and you have stayed up to this point, now it's time for me to give you my gift. So below the description there is a file that you can get the file of this short tutorial or course if you want, that you can download and use as an example, or see the example directly how I have created this, so that you can, you know, start creating yours. Let me know in the comments below if you will try this, and if you have tried it, how did it work out for you. All right, so do make sure you subscribe to the channel, check out the next video, and tell me what you think.